Chapter 5, Sisterhood Reclaimed. The air was thick with tension as Damien's voice rang through the hallway. Elena, Amara. His tone was clipped, betraying his growing impatience. Open the door. The sisters exchanged a panicked glance. Amara clutched the journal to her chest, her knuckles white against the worn leather. What do we do? Amara whispered, her voice trembling. Elena's jaw tightened, her resolve hardening. We face him, together. Amara hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. But when Elena reached for her hand, she nodded, drawing strength from her sister's presence. Elena opened the door, and Damien stood on the other side, his expression a carefully controlled mask. His eyes flicked to the journal in Amara's arms, and for the first time a crack appeared in his composure. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "We know the truth, Damien," Elena said, stepping forward. "About Amara's past, about how she was taken from her family." Damien's jaw tightened, his gaze shifting between the two women. "You don't understand," he said. "It's not what you think." "Then explain it to us." Amara shot back, her voice stronger than Elena had expected. "Tell us why you've been lying to me, why you've kept me from my sister." For a moment, Damien said nothing, his expression unreadable. Then, with a weary sigh, he stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. "I never wanted this to happen," Damien said finally, his voice quiet but strained. "I didn't know the full story when I first met you, Amara. I didn't know where you came from or how you ended up with Laurent." "But you found out," Elena pressed, her eyes narrowing. "Didn't you?" Damien nodded reluctantly. "Laurent told me the truth shortly before he died. He admitted to forging the adoption records and taking you from your real family. He thought he was doing you a favor by giving you a better life." "A better life?" Amara's voice cracked. "He tore me away from the people who loved me, from my sister." "I know," Damien said, his tone laced with guilt. "And I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid of losing you, of what you would think of me." Elena's stomach churned. "So instead you chose to keep her in the dark? To keep us apart?" "I was trying to protect her," Damien insisted. "I knew the truth would hurt her, and I didn't want her to feel like her entire life was a lie." "But it is a lie," Amara said, her voice trembling with anger. "Everything I thought I knew about myself, it's all been a lie." Elena stepped between them, her eyes blazing with determination. "You don't get to decide what's best for her, Damien. She has a right to know the truth, no matter how painful it is." Damien's expression softened as he looked at Amara. "You're right," he said quietly. "You both are. I should have told you the truth, but I was selfish. I didn't want to lose you, Amara. I thought if I kept the past buried, we could move on and build a life together." Amara stared at him, her emotions a storm of anger, sadness, and betrayal. "But it's not your choice to make," she said, her voice firm despite the tears streaming down her face. "It's mine." Damien nodded, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything." But the apology felt hollow to Elena. She couldn't forget the years she had spent searching for her sister, the pain of not knowing if she was alive or dead. And now, standing face to face with the man who had kept them apart, she wasn't sure she could ever forgive him. Later that night, the sisters sat together in Elena's small room, the journal open between them. The truth was laid bare on its pages, a painful but undeniable account of their shared past. "I don't know what to do now," Amara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena reached for her hand, her grip firm and reassuring. "We move forward," she said. "Together. No more lies. No more secrets." Amara looked at her, tears welling in her eyes. "I always felt like something was missing," she said, "like there was a piece of me I couldn't find. And now I know it was you." Elena's own eyes filled with tears as she pulled her sister into a tight embrace. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "Not ever again." As the sisters clung to each other, a new resolve began to form between them. They had uncovered the truth about their past, but their future was still uncertain. And as much as they wanted to leave Hillcrest Manor behind, they knew Damien's secrets ran deeper than they had imagined. If they truly wanted to reclaim their lives, they would have to face whatever was still hidden in the shadows. Chapter 6, The Breaking Point. The days that followed were heavy with unspoken tension. Elena and Amara kept mostly to themselves, whispering in quiet corners of the manor, poring over Laurent's journal, and piecing together the fragments of their past. But with every new detail they uncovered, they realized the truth was more tangled than they had anticipated. Amara, though shaken, had begun to find her voice. The bond between the sisters grew stronger with each passing moment, a defiant thread weaving through the cracks of their shared pain. But their newfound solidarity didn't go unnoticed. Damien's behavior had shifted. He hovered more often, his eyes calculating and cold. His sharp tone and unspoken threats made it clear he was losing his grip, not just on Amara, but on the fragile facade he had constructed. One evening, the sisters sat in Amara's room, the journal and the photograph of their childhood spread out on the bed between them. "There's something that still doesn't make sense," Elena said, her brow furrowed as she traced her finger over a line of Laurent's writing. "This entry, it talks about money exchanged for you, but it also mentions another party involved, someone who facilitated the adoption." Amara's stomach turned. "Who? Another orphanage worker?" "I don't know," Elena said. "But whoever it was, they were paid handsomely, and they were the ones who kept your records hidden." Amara's hand trembled as she reached for the journal. "Do you think Damien knows who it is?" Before Elena could respond, there was a knock at the door. The sisters froze, exchanging a panicked glance. "Who is it?" Amara called, her voice wavering. "It's me." Damien's voice was low, almost calm, but the undercurrent of tension was unmistakable. "Amara, we need to talk." Elena quickly gathered the journal and photograph, tucking them beneath the bed. Amara smoothed her dress, forcing herself to appear composed as she opened the door. Damien stepped inside, his eyes immediately locking onto Elena. "I thought I made it clear," he said, his tone sharp, "that you're here to work, not to meddle." "She's not meddling," Amara said, her voice stronger than before. "She's my sister, Damien, and she's helping me find the truth." Damien's jaw tightened, his gaze flicking between them. "The truth?" he repeated, his voice dripping with disdain. "What truth? That your life before me was filled with loss and hardship? That you were abandoned?" "I wasn't abandoned," Amara shot back. "I was stolen, and you knew." For a moment, Damien faltered. His expression hardened, but the flicker of guilt in his eyes was impossible to miss. "I did what I thought was best," he said. "For you, for us." "No, Damien," Amara said, her voice rising. "You did what was best for you. You lied to me, manipulated me, and kept me from my family. You've been controlling my life, and I'm done letting you." Elena watched in awe as Amara stood her ground. But Damien wasn't one to back down so easily. "Do you think your sister has all the answers?" he sneered. "She's been blinded by her anger, just like you. Neither of you understands what it takes to protect someone, to build a life worth living." "And neither do you," Elena said, stepping forward. "You don't protect people, Damien. You trap them. You use their pain to control them." Damien's eyes burned with fury. "You don't know anything about what I've done for this family, for Amara. You're nothing but a servant, Elena. Don't overstep your place." Amara's hand shot out, grabbing Elena's arm. "She's not a servant," she said fiercely. "She's my sister, and if you can't accept that, then you have no place in my life." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Damien's face twisted with a mix of anger and disbelief. "You don't mean that," he said quietly. "I do," Amara said, her voice breaking but resolute. "You've been lying to me for years, Damien, and now I see you for who you really are." The breaking point came later that night. As the sisters packed their belongings, preparing to leave Hillcrest Manor for good, Damien confronted them one last time. "You can't leave," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Not like this, not after everything we've been through." Amara turned to face him, her chin held high despite the tears streaming down her face. "You don't own me, Damien, and you never did." Damien's composure cracked, his fists clenched at his sides, his voice rising with desperation. "I loved you, Amara. Everything I did for you." "No," she said softly. "You did it for yourself, and I can't live like this anymore." As Elena and Amara stepped out of the manor into the cool night air, the weight of their decision settled over them. But as they reached the gate, a figure emerged from the shadows, an older man with a face Elena vaguely recognized from the journal. "I think you've been looking for me," the man said, his voice gruff but calm. "My name is Robert, and I'm the one who helped take your sister all those years ago." The sisters froze, their newfound freedom colliding with this shocking revelation. The past wasn't done with them yet. Chapter 7. A Bittersweet Freedom. The man's name was Robert Whitaker. His weathered face, shadowed by years of guilt, was etched with lines that seemed to hold the weight of countless secrets. He stood before Elena and Amara, the dim light of the street lamp casting long shadows across his hunched frame. "I've been waiting for this moment," Robert said quietly. "To tell you the truth, to try to make things right." Elena's hand tightened around Amara's, her protective instincts flaring. "Why now?" she demanded. "After all these years, why show up now?" Robert hesitated, his eyes flicking between the sisters. "Because I couldn't live with the lies anymore. I was part of what happened to you, Amara. I helped Laurent cover his tracks, but I didn't know the full story until it was too late." "What full story?" Amara's voice wavered, her emotions raw. Robert took a deep breath, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his confession. Laurent wasn't acting alone. He was part of a network, a group of powerful people who arranged illegal adoptions for profit. You weren't the only child taken, Amara, but you were the only one Laurent kept for himself. The words hit like a physical blow. Amara swayed on her feet, and Elena instinctively steadied her, her own heart pounding with rage and disbelief. "You knew about this," Elena said, her voice trembling with anger. "You helped them steal children and sell them like property." "I did," Robert admitted, his voice breaking. "And I regret it every single day. I was a desperate man back then, in debt and willing to do anything to survive. But when I saw what they were doing to families, tearing them apart, I tried to stop. Laurent didn't let me. He threatened me, blackmailed me into staying silent." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you telling us this now? What do you want from us?" "I don't want anything," Robert said, his voice pleading. "I just want to give you the truth, to give you some closure, if that's even possible, and to tell you that none of this was your fault." For a long moment, the sisters said nothing. The truth, though freeing in its own way, was a heavy burden to bear. Elena was the first to speak. "You say you want to make things right," she said, her voice cold. "Then tell us everything you know. Names, places, records, anything that can help us expose what happened." Robert nodded. "I've kept documents," he said, "proof of the network, of the adoptions, of the bribes. They're yours if you want them. I'll help you however I can." Amara's gaze softened, though pain still lingered in her eyes. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" "I was a coward," Robert admitted, his voice filled with shame. "But seeing you now, I can't run from this anymore." The next morning, armed with Robert's documents and a renewed sense of purpose, the sisters left Hillcrest Manor for good. Amara, though shaken, seemed stronger now, her bond with Elena giving her the courage to face what lay ahead. They traveled to the city, where they met with a lawyer recommended by Robert. The evidence he provided was damning, enough to spark an investigation into Laurent's network and bring long overdue justice to the families who had been torn apart. In the weeks that followed, Elena and Amara began to rebuild their lives. Though the road ahead was uncertain, they faced it together, their sisterhood a source of strength and hope. Amara decided to take up painting again, pouring her emotions onto the canvas as a way to process her pain. Her art, once a private escape, became a powerful expression of her journey. Elena, ever the protector, remained by her side, determined to support her sister in every way possible. She found work in a nearby town, earning enough to help them start fresh. One evening, as they sat together in their modest new home, Amara turned to Elena with a small smile. "I never thought I'd find you again," she said softly. Elena reached for her hand, her own smile tinged with sadness and relief. "And I never stopped looking for you." Amara's eyes glistened with tears. "It's strange," she said. "Even after everything we've been through, I finally feel free." Elena squeezed her hand. "That's because we're free, Amara. We have each other now. That's all that matters." Months later, the investigation into Laurent's network made headlines, exposing the corruption and greed that had destroyed so many lives. Amara and Elena's story became a symbol of resilience and hope, inspiring others to seek justice and healing. As the sisters stood together at the edge of a sunlit meadow, their future stretched out before them like a blank canvas. "Ready?" Elena asked, holding out a paintbrush. Amara smiled, taking the brush in her hand. "Ready." And with that, they began to paint a new chapter of their lives, one filled with hope, love, and the unbreakable bond of sisterhood. I hope you enjoyed the twists, the drama, and the emotional moments as much as I loved bringing them to life for you. If you want to see more stories filled with suspense, heart, and unforgettable characters, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the story or share your favorite part. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep reading, and keep believing in the power of stories. See you soon.